The stars looked different from orbit. Admiral Frank Miller had spent 53 years on Earth, but the last decade mostly in space. Still, he never got used to the stars. They were cold, distant, and now they were dangerous. He stood at the main viewing window of Earth's orbital shipyard and watched workers in spacesuits make the final touches on humanity's last hope. The USS Vengeance stretched nearly 3 miles from end to end. Its dark hull absorbed light rather than reflected it, a trick of the new metal alloys that also made it harder for enemy sensors to detect. "She's beautiful, isn't she?" asked a voice behind him. Miller turned to see Captain Susan White. She was younger than most captains at only 38, with short brown hair and eyes that missed nothing. Some said she was too young to command humanity's most powerful ship. Miller knew better. "Beautiful and deadly," Miller said. "Just what we need right now." 5 years ago, humans had made first contact with the Zilonians. The aliens looked somewhat like tall, thin humans with gray skin and 4 arms. At first, things seemed peaceful. Then, without warning, the Zilonians attacked the outer colonies. New Earth fell first, then Freedom Station. 2 billion dead in a single month. Earth fought back, but Zilonian ships were faster and had better weapons. Humans lost every major battle, until Proxima Centauri, where then Commander White had used an asteroid field and pure nerve to destroy 3 enemy ships with her single damaged cruiser. "The crew is boarding now," White said. "We're at 93% strength." Miller nodded. "You've read the latest report?" White's face grew tight. "New Montana colony. Yes, 50,000 people. The Zilonians didn't take prisoners this time either." They stood in silence for a moment. The shipyard lights reflected off the Vengeance's hull. Inside that massive ship, 4,000 crew members prepared for their mission. Most were veterans who had lost friends or family to the Zilonians. All were volunteers. "Your weapons officer arrived this morning," Miller said. "Lieutenant Garcia. I've worked with him before. Best targeting specialist in the fleet. And Dr. Martinez, already aboard and complaining that we're behind schedule. She wants another week to test the shields." Miller shook his head. "We don't have another week. Not after New Montana." He handed White a data pad. "These are your official orders. Take the Vengeance to the Zilonian front. Show them what humans can do when pushed too far." White took the pad and saluted. "The Vengeance will launch in 6 hours, sir." Lieutenant Alan Garcia moved his hands through the holographic controls of the weapons station. The ship's main weapon, the graviton cannon, was unlike anything humans had built before. It didn't fire energy or projectiles. It fired gravity itself, concentrated down to a beam that could tear apart matter at the atomic level. "Running final checks on targeting systems," he told the technician beside him. The technician, a young man named Paul, watched the numbers scrolling by. "Sir, these power levels are higher than in the tests." Garcia nodded. "Dr. Martinez made some adjustments, said we needed the extra punch." "Will it work?" Paul asked quietly. Garcia thought about the colony where he grew up. New Earth, first to fall to the Zilonians. His parents and sister had died there while he was away at the academy. "It has to work," he said. 3 decks below, Dr. Olivia Martinez argued with her assistant in the shield control room. "The phase harmonics are still fluctuating," she said, pointing at a screen filled with complex equations. "We need more time." Her assistant, Kate, shook her head. "Captain's orders, we launch in 5 hours." Martinez ran a hand through her curly black hair. She had developed the theory behind the new shields when she was still a student. The idea was simple, but the execution was nearly impossible. Create a bubble of altered space-time around the ship. Enemy weapons would pass through the bubble as if the ship wasn't there. In practice, it had taken 7 years and more money than any project in human history to make it work. Even now, Martinez wasn't satisfied. "If the shields fail in battle, this ship becomes the most expensive coffin ever built," she muttered. Kate put a hand on her shoulder. "That's why you're going with them, to make sure that doesn't happen." Martinez sighed and turned back to her work. She had hoped to be on Earth when the ship launched, supervising from a safe distance. But White had insisted the shield designer needed to be on board, Nobody knows this system like you do, the captain had said. Now Martinez was stuck on a warship heading into the most dangerous mission in human history. Captain Susan White walked through the corridors of her new command. Crew members saluted as she passed. Some looked afraid, others looked eager. All of them knew what was at stake. She entered the bridge and took a moment to look around. Unlike the bridges of older ships, the Vengeance's command center was designed for efficiency above all else. No wasted space, no decorative elements, just stations for 20 bridge officers arranged in concentric half circles around the captain's chair. "Captain on the bridge," called out Commander Ryan Davis, her second in command. Everyone stood at attention. "As you were," White said, moving to her chair. "Status report, Commander." Davis handed her a tablet. "All departments report ready or nearly ready. Dr. Martinez is still complaining about the shields, but engineering says they're at 97% efficiency." "And the graviton cannon?" "Lieutenant Garcia reports all weapon systems operational and ready for combat." White nodded and sat down. The chair molded itself to her form, displays lighting up around her with ship status reports. "Communications," she called out. "Send word to Admiral Miller. The Vengeance will launch on schedule." Outside, the massive docking clamps that held the ship began to retract. Like a whale being released back to the ocean, the Vengeance slowly drifted away from the orbital shipyard. Its engines, another revolutionary design, came to life with a soft blue glow. On the bridge, White felt the slight vibration as the ship began to move under its own power for the first time. "Helm, take us out of Earth orbit. Set course for the front lines." As the Vengeance accelerated away from Earth, news arrived from the outer colonies. New Montana was gone, 50,000 dead. The Zilonians were pushing deeper into human space. Every day, the time for testing was over. Humanity's greatest ship was going to war. 3 weeks passed as the Vengeance traveled through space. The ship moved faster than any human vessel before it. Engineer Joe Peterson spent most of his time in the engine room, making sure the new drive systems worked perfectly. The engines used a mix of technologies that humans had developed in secret. They ran almost silent and left almost no trail to follow. "How are the power levels?" Peterson asked his team as they finished another day of checks. "Still at 98%. "Efficiency," replied Linda, one of his best engineers. "These engines could run for 3 years without stopping." Peterson nodded with pride. He had helped design these engines, working day and night for 5 years. Now they were carrying humanity's best hope through the darkness of space. On the bridge, Captain White reviewed reports from the front lines. The news was not good. The Zilonians had taken 3 more human outposts in the last week. Earth forces were falling back everywhere. "Captain," called Communications Officer Natalie Green. "Incoming message from Outpost Zeta 9. They're under attack." White looked up from her reports. "Put it on screen." The main screen showed a man in a dirty uniform. Behind him, people ran back and forth as alarms sounded. "This is Dr. Ken Lewis at Research Outpost Zeta 9, the man said. "We are under attack by Zilonian forces. Our defenses cannot hold much longer. We have 63 civilians on station. Please send help immediately." The message cut off in static. "Location of Outpost Zeta 9? White asked. "The Rigel system," Commander Davis answered. "It's a small research station, not a military target." White thought quickly. The Vengeance was supposed to remain hidden until it reached the main front lines. Those were her orders from Admiral Miller, but she couldn't ignore a distress call from helpless civilians. "Change course for the Rigel system," she ordered. "Maximum speed." "Captain," Davis said quietly. "Our orders were to proceed directly to the front." White looked at him. "There are civilians in danger, Commander. The front line just moved to Rigel." 2 hours later, the Vengeance dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Rigel system. The bridge crew gasped at what they saw on the main screen. "That's not a raiding party," Lieutenant Garcia said. "That's a war fleet." 30 Zilonian ships surrounded the small research outpost. Most were cruisers, but there were 5 dreadnoughts as well. It was more firepower than humans had seen in any single battle of the war. Why would they send so many ships to attack one small outpost? Commander Davis wondered. Communications Officer Green suddenly straightened in her chair. Captain, I'm picking up Zilonian transmissions. They're talking about us. Explain, White said. They're saying they knew we would. Come here. Green looked up with worried eyes. Captain, I think this is a trap. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. If the Zilonians knew about the Vengeance, it meant they had a spy somewhere in Earth's military. They haven't spotted us yet, the sensor officer reported. The new hull material is working. White stood from her chair and walked closer to the main screen. Options, Commander? Davis spoke low. We could leave now. They haven't seen us. We could warn Earth about the possible spy and proceed to the front as ordered. White nodded. We could. Lieutenant Garcia, if we engage this fleet, what are our chances? Garcia studied his weapons display. Unknown, Captain. The Vengeance hasn't been tested in actual combat. On paper, we should be able to handle them. But 30 ships at once. Dr. Martinez, White called over the ship's communication system. Are the shields ready? Martinez's voice came back tense. As ready as they'll ever be without proper testing. But Captain, I never designed them to face 30 ships at once. White looked around at her crew. They were waiting for her decision. Run and keep the Vengeance safe, or fight and risk Earth's greatest weapon in its first battle. The Vengeance wasn't built to run, White said finally. Communications, send a message to Outpost Zeta 9. Tell them help is coming. All hands to battle stations. Red lights came on throughout the ship as the alarm sounded. Crew members who had been eating or sleeping rushed to their posts. In the weapons control room, Lieutenant Garcia prepared the graviton cannon for its first real test. Shields up, White ordered. In her control room, Dr. Martinez activated the shield system. A slight shimmer appeared around the massive ship as the space-time bubble formed. Take us in, White said to the helm officer. Full speed. The Vengeance moved forward, no longer hiding. Almost immediately, the Zilonian ships detected them. They're changing formation, Davis reported. Moving to surround us. The first Zilonian shots came seconds later. Green energy beams that would have cut through any normal human ship hit the Vengeance's shields and dissipated into nothing. Shields holding, Martinez reported, surprise in her voice. Power drain minimal. White allowed herself a small smile. Return fire. Conventional. Weapons only for now. Let's see what we can do. The Vengeance fired its regular weapons. Beams of blue energy shot out from various points on the ship's hull, striking 3 Zilonian cruisers. Unlike the Zilonian weapons, these beams punched through the enemy shields and cut deep into their ships. The 3 cruisers exploded almost simultaneously. The bridge crew cheered, but White kept her focus. They're regrouping. Here comes the real attack. The remaining Zilonian ships fired together. The space around the Vengeance lit up with green energy as hundreds of weapon beams struck the shields. Shields at 86%, Martinez called out. Still holding. White nodded. Garcia, target the dreadnought moving into position. You're cleared to use the graviton cannon. In the weapons room, Garcia's hands moved quickly over the controls. Graviton cannon locked on target. Firing. A beam of what looked like distorted space shot out from the front of the Vengeance. It struck the Zilonian dreadnought and seemed to pass through it without effect. Then, as the crew watched, the massive enemy ship began to collapse in on itself, crushed by its own mass. In seconds, the dreadnought was gone, leaving only floating debris. The remaining Zilonian ships immediately began to retreat, sending panicked messages to each other. They're running, Davis said in disbelief. Let them go, White ordered. Let them tell the others what happened here. As the Zilonian fleet jumped away into faster-than-light travel, the crew of the Vengeance realized what they had done. In their first battle, they had destroyed 4 ships and sent 26 others running in fear. Send ships to evacuate the research station, White ordered, and then send a message to Earth. Tell them the Vengeance has joined the war. News of the Vengeance's victory spread quickly. Human colonies celebrated while Zilonian outposts prepared for attacks. The ship had become both hope for humans and terror for their enemies. Captain White stood in her ready room, looking at the message from Earth Command. Her new orders were clear. Take the fight directly to Zolonian space. No human ship had ever done that before. "You wanted to see me, Captain?" Commander Davis asked as he entered the room. White handed him the orders. "We're going in, Ryan. Deep into their territory." Davis read quickly and frowned. "This is aggressive. Very aggressive." "Earth is tired of being on the defensive," White said. "The vengeance gives us a chance to hit back." As they spoke, another situation was developing. A ship had appeared near the Vengeance, not Zolonian in design. It was smaller with smooth lines and a blue-green hull. "Captain to the bridge," came the call over the communication system. White and Davis hurried out. On the main screen was the unknown ship. "They're hailing us," Green reported from her communication station. "Put them through," White ordered. The screen changed to show a humanoid figure with pale blue skin and silver hair. He wore formal robes with complex patterns. "Greetings, Captain." "White of the Earth vessel Vengeance," the alien said. "I am Ambassador Richard Bennett of the Aldarian Diplomatic Corps." White was surprised. The Aldarians were known traitors who dealt with both humans and Zolonians. They had stayed neutral in the war so far. "Ambassador Bennett," she replied. "You have an Earth name." The ambassador smiled. "I chose it for easier communication with humans. My Aldarian name would be difficult for you to pronounce." "What brings you to my ship, Ambassador?" "News of your victory has reached all corners of the galaxy, Captain. The Aldarian Council wishes to open direct talks with you." White glanced at Davis, who looked equally surprised. "With me? Not with Earth government?" "You command the Vengeance," Bennett said simply. "That makes you very important right now." White understood the unspoken message. The Aldarians were hedging their bets, establishing connections with the new power in the region. "What do you want to discuss?" she asked. "An exchange. We can provide detailed information about Zolonian fleet movements. In return, we seek assurance that your graviton technology will never be used against Aldarian worlds." White nodded. This was bigger than her. "I'll need to consult with Earth Command." "Of course," Bennett said. "We will await your response." The screen returned to showing the Aldarian ship. "Interesting timing," Davis commented quietly. "Very." White agreed. "Keep an eye on them while I contact Admiral Miller." In another part of the ship, Security Chief Laura Johnson was reviewing system logs when she noticed something strange. Someone had accessed the shield control system from an unauthorized terminal. The access was brief and well hidden, but Johnson had been looking for exactly this kind of activity. Ever since they learned about the trap at Outpost Zeta 9, Johnson had been searching for signs of sabotage. Now she had found something. She called her team together. "I want a full sweep of all systems, looking for any unauthorized access or changes, and find out who used Terminal 47B at 0300 hours this morning." As her team moved to obey, Johnson went to her secure communication system to report to Captain White. This could be the spy they feared. Meanwhile, Dr. Martinez worked alone in her lab. The shield system data showed strange patterns after the battle. The shields had not just blocked the Zolonian weapons, they had somehow absorbed the energy. And they were getting stronger. Martinez hadn't told anyone yet. The shields were working better than she had designed them to, but she didn't understand why. That worried her. In science, unexpected results could be wonderful discoveries or dangerous problems. She ran another simulation and frowned at the results. The shield system was changing, evolving in ways she hadn't programmed. It was almost as if it was learning. "What are you up to?" she whispered to her creation. The ship continued toward the Cygnus sector, the first Zolonian-controlled region they would enter. Reports from Earth grew more positive as news of the Vengeance's victory gave people hope. For the first time in years, humans believed they might win this war. In his quarters, Lieutenant Garcia reviewed the performance of the graviton cannon. The weapon had worked perfectly, better than in any test. But he had noticed something odd in the sensor readings. Just before the Zolonian dreadnought was crushed, there had been a brief distortion in space around it, almost like the beginning of a tunnel or hole. Garcia didn't know what it meant, but he recorded it in his report. Perhaps Dr. Martinez would understand. Far away, on the Zilonian homeworld, High Commander Zrek stood before the Hierarchy Council. His gray skin had a sickly pallor as he delivered the news of the human ship. "The reports are confirmed," he said. "Their weapon bends gravity itself. No defense we have can stop it." The 9 members of the council sat in silence. Finally, the eldest spoke. "How did humans develop such technology?" Our intelligence said. They were at least 30 years from mastering graviton manipulation. Zrek had no answer. "They have hidden their advances well. The ship also has shields unlike any we have seen. Our weapons did no damage." Another council member leaned forward. "What do you propose, High Commander?" "We must gather our forces," Zrek said. "Every ship, every weapon. We must destroy this human vessel before it reaches our core worlds." The council murmured agreement. And, Zrek added, "I recommend we send the World Render." This caused a stir. The World Render was the Zilonians' greatest weapon, a ship capable of destroying planets. It had only been used twice in their history. "Is this human ship truly such a threat?" asked the youngest council member. "Yes," Zrek said without hesitation. "If we do not stop it now, everything we have built may be lost." The council voted unanimously to approve Zrek's plan. The greatest fleet in Zilonian history would be assembled, led by their planet killer. Back on the Vengeance, Captain White finished her call with Admiral Miller. Earth had approved limited negotiations with the Aldarians. As she prepared to meet with Ambassador Bennett again, Security Chief Johnson arrived with her report about the possible sabotage. "Someone is accessing our systems, Captain," Johnson explained. "And they're good at hiding their tracks." White's face grew serious. "Find them, Laura, whatever it takes." The ship moved deeper into space, toward enemy territory. On a small Zilonian colony world at the edge of the Cygnus sector, the alarm spread. The human ship was coming. Thousands of Zilonians rushed to evacuate, leaving homes and possessions behind. They had heard what happened to the dreadnought. They had seen the recordings. The human ship was coming, and the galaxy was learning to fear it. The Vengeance had been in Zilonian space for 2 weeks. In that time, it had destroyed 7 major military bases. The Zilonians now called the ship the Planet Eater in their communications. They abandoned outposts when they merely heard rumors that the human ship was approaching. Captain White sat alone in her quarters, looking at pictures of the destruction they had caused. She had joined the space fleet to explore and protect, not to make entire species fear her. But the Zilonians had started this war. They had killed billions of humans. Someone had to stop them. A call came through her communication panel. "Captain, Admiral Miller has arrived via fast transport," Commander Davis reported. White was surprised. Miller had traveled all the way from Earth? "I'll meet him in Docking Bay 3. When she arrived, Miller looked older than when she had last seen him. The strain of war had deepened the lines on his face. "Frank," she greeted him, dropping formality for a moment. "I didn't expect to see you out here." Miller attempted a smile. "Some news needs to be delivered in person, Susan." They walked to a private meeting room. Once inside, Miller's face grew serious. "The Zilonians have started targeting families of Vengeance crew members," he said without preamble. White felt cold. "What? How?" "Assassination teams. They've hit 3 cities on Earth so far. 12 family members killed, including Lieutenant Garcia's cousin and Dr. Martinez's brother." White sat down heavily. "Does the crew know?" "Not yet. I thought you should tell them." White nodded, her mind racing. This changed things. The Zilonians were getting desperate. "There's more," Miller said. "Earth government is split. Some want to end this quickly." "What does that mean?" "They want you to take the Vengeance to the Zilonian homeworld. Use the graviton cannon on their planet." White stared at him. "That would kill billions of civilians." "Yes," Miller said quietly. "It would." "Is that an order?" White asked, her voice hard. Miller shook his head. "Not yet, but the pressure is building. I need to know where you stand, Susan. You've become a hero back home. Your opinion carries weight now. Before White could answer, her communication panel beeped urgently. Captain to the bridge. Emergency situation. White and Miller hurried to the bridge. On the main screen was the ship's AI specialist, Daniel Powell. His face was bloody and he was in what looked like a storage room. Captain, he gasped. I found the saboteur. It's Ensign Ward. He's locked me in storage room B12. He's heading for the shield control room. Security teams to shield control. Now, White ordered. Davis, lock down all sensitive systems. Ward? Miller asked. Ben Ward? His entire family was on New Montana colony. White understood immediately. Ward wasn't working for the Zilonians. He was working against White's measured approach to the war. He wanted revenge at any cost. He must think we're being too cautious, White said. He wants to force our hand. Security Chief Johnson's voice came over the communication system. Captain, we've cornered Ward outside shield control. He's armed. Take him alive if possible, White ordered. I want to know exactly what he's done to my ship. Minutes later, Johnson reported back. Ward is in custody, but Lieutenant Powell is injured badly. He's in medical now. White turned to Miller. And now I have to tell my crew about the attacks on their families, while dealing with one of our own trying to sabotage us. This war is destroying us from the inside, Frank. Miller had no answer. In the medical bay, Dr. Martinez worked frantically to save Daniel Powell's life. The AI specialist had been stabbed twice in the chest. As she worked, Martinez thought about her brother on Earth. Dead because she was on this ship. Her hands shook slightly. Stay with me, Daniel, she whispered, as his vital signs weakened. Elsewhere, on the ship, Lieutenant Garcia was testing a modification to the graviton cannon. After seeing the strange space distortion in previous firings, he had developed a theory. The cannon wasn't just crushing things with gravity, it was briefly opening a connection to another dimension. If he could control that effect, the weapon could do more than destroy. It could move objects across space or even time. It could create wormholes. He didn't know if Captain White would approve such experiments now. After learning about his cousin's death, Garcia had considered pushing for a direct attack on the Zilonian, homeworld himself. But that wasn't who he was. That wasn't who any of them were supposed to be. On the bridge, White received an unexpected transmission. It was from the Zilonian hierarchy directly. Put it through, she ordered. The screen showed High Commander Zrek. His gray face was expressionless as he spoke. Captain White, I am authorized to offer terms of surrender. A stunned silence fell. Over the bridge. Surrender? White repeated. The Zilonian hierarchy will cease all military action against Earth and its colonies, Zrek continued. In return, we keep the territories we have already claimed, and you guarantee never to use your graviton technology against our homeworld. White studied the alien commander's face. Was this genuine, or another trap? Why now? She asked. You know why, Zrek replied. Your ship has proven effective. Miller stepped forward. And the killing of our civilians? The attacks on our crew's families? Zrek's face didn't change. Regrettable tactics of war. They will cease immediately if you accept our terms. White felt every eye on the bridge turn to her. The Zilonians were offering peace, but they would keep the colonies they had taken. Millions of humans would remain under their control. I will consult with Earth government, White said finally. You'll have our answer in 24 hours. After the transmission ended, Miller turned to her. They're afraid. We could push for better terms. Or they're stalling for time, White replied, trying to keep us talking while they prepare something. Commander. Davis spoke up from his station. Captain, long-range sensors are detecting a large number of ships moving toward our position. Very large number. How many? White asked. Davis looked up, his face pale. Over 300 signals, and one of them is bigger than anything I've ever seen. Miller and White looked at each other. The world render, they said in unison. Das, Zilonian planet killer was coming. along with the largest battle fleet ever assembled in the galaxy. The offer of surrender had indeed been a delaying tactic. "Alert all hands," White ordered. "Prepare for battle." As crew members rushed to their stations, Captain White stood on her bridge and faced the coming storm. In a few hours, the Vengeance would fight for its life against an armada designed for one purpose: to erase humanity's greatest ship from existence, and the galaxy would watch to see which force would prevail. The Zilonian fleet appeared like a swarm of metal insects against the blackness of space. 300 warships spread out in attack formation. At their center was the World Render, a ship 5 times larger than the Vengeance, shaped like a massive arrowhead. "All hands to battle stations," Captain White's voice echoed through the Vengeance. "This is what we were built for." In the shield control room, Dr. Martinez finished the final adjustments to her system. The shields had continued to evolve, and she had finally understood why. They weren't just blocking attacks, they were learning from them. Each hit made them stronger in that specific way. It was an accidental breakthrough that might save their lives today. "Shields at maximum," she reported to the bridge. "They're as ready as they'll ever be." Lieutenant Garcia stood at his weapon station, the graviton cannon controls under his fingertips. He had made his own modifications, hoping to test his wormhole theory if the chance came. "Weapons ready," he reported. "Graviton cannon at full power." In the engine room, Engineer Peterson pushed the drive systems beyond their designed limits. They would need every bit of speed and maneuverability against so many enemies. "Engines at 110%, he reported. "I can give you bursts of 120, but not for long." On the bridge, Communications Officer Green monitored Zilonian transmissions. "They're coordinating their attack patterns," she reported. "Targeting solutions for all weapon systems." Admiral Miller stood beside Captain White's chair. "Any last words of wisdom?" White asked him quietly. Miller shook his head. "You don't need my advice anymore, Susan. You've become the captain we always hoped you would be." White nodded and turned to the main screen. "All right, let's show them what one human ship can do. Helm, attack pattern Delta. Take us right into the middle of their formation." The Vengeance moved forward, its dark hull absorbing the light from nearby stars. The Zilonian ships began firing immediately, hundreds of green energy beams striking the shields. "Shields holding at 93%, Martinez reported, surprise in her voice. "They're adapting faster than I expected." The Vengeance returned. Fire, its conventional weapons destroying 3 Zilonian cruisers in the first pass. The graviton cannon fired next, taking out a dreadnought in a single shot. But there were too many enemy ships. They surrounded the Vengeance, firing from all directions. The battle became a dance of light and shadow as the human ship twisted and turned through the enemy formation, dealing damage while trying to avoid being overwhelmed. "Shields at 78%, Martinez reported after 20 minutes of intense fighting. "Still holding, but they're starting to strain." "We've destroyed 17 enemy ships," Garcia reported, "but we're barely making a dent in their numbers." White studied the tactical display. The World Render hadn't engaged yet. It hung back, waiting, planning. "We need to change tactics," she said. "Peterson, give me everything the engines have. We're going to make a run at the World Render directly." The massive human ship changed course suddenly, accelerating toward the heart of the Zilonian fleet. Enemy ships scrambled to intercept, but the Vengeance's superior speed allowed it to punch through their lines. "The World Render is powering up its main weapon," Green warned, picking up the Zilonian transmissions. On the main screen, they could see the front of the huge enemy ship beginning to glow with deadly energy. The Zilonian planet killer was designed to fire a beam that could crack a world in half. "Garcia," White called. "Can you target their main weapon with the graviton cannon?" "Yes, Captain, but they have heavy shields. I'm not sure we can penetrate them in time." "What about your wormhole theory?" White asked. "Could you create one directly in front of their weapon?" Garcia looked startled. "How did you know about that?" "I read your reports, Lieutenant. All of them." "Would it work?" Garcia thought quickly. "In theory, yes. The distortion might redirect their weapon's energy back at them. but it's never been tested. Well, we're testing it now, White said. Make it happen. As the Vengeance approached the world render, more Zilonian ships converged on their position. The human vessel took hit after hit. Shields at 54%, Martinez reported. Major damage on decks 12 through 15. Main engines hit, Peterson called from engineering. We're losing speed. White held onto her chair as the AO ship shuddered around her. Stay on course, get us within range of the world render. Communications Officer Green suddenly called out, Captain, I've decoded their command frequency. I can hear their orders in real time. Feed the targeting data to Lieutenant Garcia, White ordered. With Green's information, Garcia could predict exactly when and where the world render would fire. Target locked, he reported, ready to attempt wormhole creation. The world render's weapon reached full power, its front glowing like a small sun. The Zilonian ship was moments away from firing. Now, Garcia, White ordered. The graviton cannon fired, but instead of its usual setting, Garcia had modified it to create a controlled space distortion. A ripple appeared in the space directly in front of the world render's weapon. The Zilonian ship fired its planet killer beam. The energy struck the distortion and seemed to vanish for a moment. Then, impossibly, it reappeared behind the world render, striking the ship's own engines. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The world render's power systems overloaded, sending cascading explosions throughout the massive vessel. The ship broke apart from the inside, its own weapon energy tearing it to pieces. A stunned silence fell over the Vengeance's bridge as they watched the Zilonian superweapon destroy itself. Did we just? Commander Davis began. Yes, White said, quietly. We did. The remaining Zilonian ships began to retreat in disorder. With the world render gone, their will to fight evaporated. They're running, Miller said, amazement in his voice. Let them go, White ordered. Let them tell everyone what happened here. As the enemy fleet scattered, White surveyed the damage to her ship. The Vengeance had survived, but at a cost. Nearly a third of the crew was dead or injured. Entire sections of the ship would need major repairs. Captain, Green called from her station. Incoming transmission. It's the Zilonian hierarchy. They're offering unconditional surrender. The bridge crew looked at each other in disbelief. After years of war, after billions of deaths, it was over. 3 days later, Captain White addressed her crew from the main cargo bay, the only space large enough to hold all the survivors. What we did here will be remembered for generations, she said. Not just the victory, but how we won. We didn't destroy their homeworld. We didn't become the monsters they thought we were. We remained human even in our darkest hour. She looked out at the tired, wounded faces of her crew. The Vengeance will return to Earth for repairs. The war is over. After the ceremony, Admiral Miller approached White in a quiet corridor. Earth is offering you a promotion. Admiral White. Has a nice ring to it. White shook her head. My place is with this ship, Frank. There's a whole galaxy out there, and now we can explore it in peace. As the Vengeance limped back toward Earth, Dr. Martinez made her final breakthrough. The shield technology, combined with Garcia's wormhole application, could revolutionize space travel. Humans could now reach parts of the galaxy they had only dreamed of before. The ship that had made the galaxy tremble in fear would now lead humanity to the stars not as conquerors, but as explorers. And if other threats lurked in the darkness between stars, they would find humanity ready, but hoping for peace. The Vengeance had fulfilled its purpose. Earth's mightiest ship had won the war.